I found a note on the kitchen counter, one ordinary Tuesday morning after 7 years of marriage. It read, "I deserve better than this boring marriage. Do not look for me." By the way, the rest was missing. My heart stopped. I checked around frantically. Kaiser, our 3-year-old Golden Retriever, was gone. So was her car. Our shared safe was open, emptied of cash and jewelry. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Before I continue my story, what would you do if your spouse vanished with a note like this? Drop a comment below and hit subscribe if you have experienced something similar. That morning replays in my mind like a nightmare I cannot shake. Let me back up and give you the full picture. My name is Braden, 32 years old, software engineer at a tech company in Seattle. My wife Amanda and I met during our junior year at University of Washington. She was studying business management, and I was the awkward computer science guy who somehow worked up the courage to ask her out after we were paired on a cross-departmental project. We dated for 3 years before getting married in a beautiful ceremony at her parents' lake house. For the first 5 years, everything seemed perfect. Amanda built her career as a manager at an upscale spa downtown, while I climbed the ranks at my company. We bought our first home together, adopted Kaiser as a puppy, and seemed to be living the dream. At least that was what I thought. Looking back, the cracks started showing about 8 months ago. Amanda began staying out later, citing work events and client meetings. She grew more distant, always on her phone, quickly hiding the screen whenever I walked into the room. I noticed her laughing at text messages but growing quiet when I entered our living room. When I asked about it, she would brush it off as just work stuff or chatting with the girls. I tried everything to keep our connection strong. For our 7th anniversary, I planned a weekend getaway to Napa Valley, remembering how much she loved wine country when we visited early in our relationship. I bought her thoughtful gifts, tried new restaurants, suggested activities to break our routine. I even proposed salsa dancing classes because she once mentioned wanting to learn. Every suggestion was met with lukewarm enthusiasm or excuses about being tired from work. And now here I was staring at a note, calling our marriage boring, while trying to process that she had disappeared with our dog. The immediate shock gave way to frantic discovery as I assessed what else was missing. $5,000 from our joint checking account had been withdrawn yesterday. Her jewelry was gone, including pieces I had gifted her, and family heirlooms from her grandmother. Her car was missing from the garage. And Kaiser, our loving retriever who had been my loyal companion through many late work nights, was nowhere to be found. I tried calling her cell phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. Text messages showed as delivered but remained unread. I called her parents, trying to keep my voice steady as I asked if they had heard from her. They claimed they had not, though something in her mother voice made me wonder if she was hiding something. She left a note saying she deserves better than our boring marriage. I finally admitted to them. The awkward silence that followed told me they might have known more than they were saying. After hanging up, I checked our home security camera footage. At 4:15 in the morning, the cameras captured Amanda loading suitcases into her car, then carefully coaxing Kaiser into the back seat before driving away. The timestamp showed this happened just 3 hours before I woke up and found the note. As reality sank in, my mind went to the one place I had been avoiding. Was there another man? The thought crashed through my consciousness like a wrecking ball, destroying the last of my denial. The first 24 hours passed in a blur of shock, grief, and confusion. I barely slept, checking my phone constantly for any message from Amanda, alternating between anger and desperate hope that this was all some terrible misunderstanding. By the morning of the second day, with still no word, I called Jake, my best friend since college, who happened to be a divorce attorney. "This is not your fault," Jake said firmly after I explained everything. "But you need to protect yourself right now, Braden. This is not just emotional abandonment, this is financial and property theft." His words crystallized something in me. For the first time since finding the note, I began thinking clearly. Amanda had left her laptop behind in her haste, and while I had never been the type to invade her privacy before self-preservation kicked in, I logged into her computer and checked her email and messages. What I found shattered any lingering doubt. Dozens of messages with someone named Christopher detailed their affair going back nearly 5 months, including plans for their escape together. I found hotel receipts, screenshots of flight bookings, and messages where she complained about our suffocating and predictable marriage. Most devastating were the messages where she discussed what to take when she left, calculating exactly how much money she could remove from our accounts without immediately triggering fraud alerts. I discovered records of expensive gifts she had purchased for Christopher using our joint credit card. Watches, designer clothes, weekend getaways, all while I was working overtime to build our savings for the house renovations we had been planning together. There were even messages joking about taking Kaiser because she knew how much the dog meant to me. Something shifted inside me at that moment. The tears dried up, the self-pity evaporated. In its place came a cold, focused resolve. No more crying, only action. I made a list and started executing my plan methodically. First, I called our bank and froze our joint checking and savings accounts. The representative was sympathetic when I explained the situation, especially when I mentioned the unauthorized withdrawal and provided evidence of more planned financial misappropriation from the messages I had found. Next, I went to the local police station and filed a report about Kaiser being taken. Since the dog was registered and microchipped under my name, this technically constituted theft. The officer took down all the details, including Kaiser description and chip number. I also posted missing dog notices on social media and community groups with a reward using Kaiser most recent photos. I returned home and changed all the lock's security codes and passwords to our shared accounts. I gathered all the evidence I had found and forwarded it to Jake, who had already started preparing divorce papers. By evening, I had secured a temporary freeze on our joint credit cards as well. At 9:30 that night, Amanda finally called. She was livid about the frozen accounts. "What do you think you are doing?" she demanded, her voice shaking with anger. "I need that money." I kept my voice calm and neutral. "Where is Kaiser? He is fine. He is with me." "Now unfreeze the accounts, Braden. This is ridiculous." "No, Amanda. You abandoned our marriage, stole money, jewelry, and my dog. Everything goes through lawyers now. You cannot be serious. After 7 years, this is how you want to handle this." Her voice had that manipulative tone I now recognized. From all those times she had convinced me that my concerns about our relationship were just my insecurity. "You set the terms when you left that note," I replied. "I am just following your lead." She hung up. I did not tell her that I knew about Christopher. That information would be more valuable, held back for now. Jake called later that evening to confirm he had drafted the initial divorce filing and gathered evidence of financial misconduct during marriage. "She has no idea who she is dealing with," he said with grim satisfaction. I realized he was right. Amanda had always seen me as the predictable, reliable husband who would never rock the boat. She thought she could walk all over me. Now she was discovering I was not a doormat after all. On the second day after Amanda left, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Before I had managed to freeze our accounts, she had withdrawn almost all the money from our joint savings account, nearly $40,000 we had been setting aside for years. Money for home improvements, future travel plans, and what I had hoped might someday be a starter fund for a family. I met with Jake and his paralegal team that afternoon to go over our strategy. The evidence of Amanda taking the money, combined with the messages planning her departure and the police report about Kaiser, gave us significant leverage. Jake explained that courts tend to look unfavorably on spouses who engage in financial misconduct and property theft during separation. Amanda continued calling and texting, increasingly frantic, as she realized the extent of the actions I had taken. I refused to answer calls, responding only via text message and keeping all communication focused on one demand: return Kaiser immediately. Through some social media digging, one of Jake's paralegals discovered that Amanda and her new boyfriend Christopher were staying at an oceanside resort about 2 hours away. They had been posting photos, careful to keep their faces hidden, but thoughtlessly including distinctive resort amenities in the background that made the location easy to identify. Meanwhile, the community response to my missing dog posts had been overwhelming. Neighbors, colleagues, and even casual acquaintances shared Kaiser picture across various platforms. By extraordinary luck, someone staying near the same resort recognized Kaiser from my shared post. They messaged me a photo of Amanda walking him along the beach. With this information and the police report already filed, I contacted the local police department near the resort. I provided Kaiser microchip documentation, registration papers, and the evidence that he had been taken without permission. The responding officer was a dog owner himself and promised to look into it immediately. That afternoon, I received a call from the local police. They had located Kaiser at the resort and confronted Amanda. Since all the documentation proved I was Kaiser legal owner, and she had no paperwork claiming otherwise, the officers took custody of Kaiser to return him to me. I drove the 2 hours to the local police station with a mixture of anxiety and vindication churning in my stomach. When I finally saw Kaiser bounding toward me in the station lobby, tail wagging furiously, I dropped to my knees and hugged him, not caring who saw the tears streaming down my face. The officer explained that Amanda had been furious but powerless to stop them from taking Kaiser. Her boyfriend kept telling her to just let the dog go, that they had bigger problems, he added, with a knowing look. I thanked him profusely and drove home with Kaiser safely in the passenger seat, frequently reaching over to reassure myself he was really there. That evening, Amanda's mother called me, her voice sharp with accusation. "How could you send the police after my daughter? Do you know how humiliating that was for her? This is childish and cruel, Brayden." "I sent the police to recover my stolen dog," I replied calmly. "Amanda made her choice when she took him. She was planning to come back for her things and discuss this rationally, but now you have turned this into a circus. With all due respect, she emptied our bank accounts and disappeared with a note saying not to look for her. That does not sound like someone planning rational discussion." She hung up on me. Minutes later, Amanda texted, "You will regret this. When we get to court, I will take everything. You have no idea what is coming." Jake advised me to ignore the threat and not respond. "This is good for us," he explained. "She is rattled and making threats. Keep collecting evidence and let her dig her own grave." The next morning, I received a formal notice that Amanda and her attorney would be meeting with Jake at his office the following day to discuss divorce proceedings. The first real confrontation was coming. I arrived at Jake's office 30 minutes early, my stomach in knots despite my outward calm. I had dressed in my best suit, determined to look composed and in control, despite the emotional turmoil of the past 3 days. Jake greeted me with a reassuring handshake, radiating the confidence I desperately needed. "Remember, they requested this meeting, not us. That already puts us in a position of strength," he reminded me as we reviewed our strategy one last time. As we waited in the conference room, I glanced through the glass door and froze. Amanda was sitting in the reception area, but not with the confident, defiant posture I had expected. She looked disheveled, her eyes red and swollen from crying. More surprising still, Christopher was nowhere to be seen. Instead, an older man in an expensive suit sat beside her, reviewing documents with a severe expression. Jake noticed my surprise and texted me from across the table, "Stay calm. This is good for us." When they entered the conference room, Amanda barely made eye contact. Her attorney introduced himself as Martin Whitaker from one of the city's most prestigious firms, the kind that charged consultation fees that would make most people gasp. I wondered briefly how she was affording him, then remembered the $40,000 she had taken. "My client wishes to discuss reasonable terms for an expedited divorce proceeding," Whitaker began formally. "She is prepared to return $15,000 of the withdrawn funds as a gesture of good faith." Jake smiled politely. 15 out of 40,000 is not good faith, it is continuing theft. But before we discuss finances, we should address the other concerns, including the removal of personal property, unauthorized use of joint funds to purchase gifts for a third party, and the attempted theft of my client dog. Amanda flinched at each item Jake listed. I maintained eye contact with Whitaker, refusing to look at her directly. Jake methodically presented the evidence. We had gathered screenshots of text messages detailing the affair, credit card statements showing lavish spending on Christopher hotel receipts, and finally, the security footage of her leaving with Kaiser. "My client is prepared to file criminal charges regarding the financial misconduct if necessary," Jake added calmly. "But we would prefer to resolve this through civil proceedings if possible." At the mention of criminal charges, Amanda broke down. "You cannot be serious," she sobbed. "I was going to pay it back eventually." Her attorney placed a warning hand on her arm, but she brushed it away. "Christopher is gone," she blurted out. "He left 2 hours after the police came for Kaiser. He said this was too much drama, and he did not sign up for legal problems." I felt a wave of pity despite myself. The man she had thrown away our marriage for had abandoned her at the first sign of consequences. He convinced me our marriage was holding me back. She continued, ignoring her attorney attempts to quiet her. "He said we would travel the world together, that I deserved excitement and passion instead of predictability. But the moment the money started running out and there were legal issues, he disappeared." Whitaker cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should take a brief recess." No, Amanda insisted, looking directly at me for the first time. I want to get this over with. What do you want? Braden Jake took control of the conversation, outlining our terms: full return of all removed funds, immediate agreement to an uncontested divorce, Amanda relinquishing any claim to our house, and a clean separation of all assets based on clear documentation of what each of us had contributed to the marriage. To my surprise, Whitaker did not fight these terms aggressively. After some negotiation over specific details, we reached an agreement that was far more favorable than I had expected. Amanda would return the remaining money, keep only her personal belongings and her car, and agree to the uncontested divorce. In exchange, I would not pursue criminal charges or make public the details of her affair. As we concluded the meeting, Amanda asked if she could speak with me privately. Against Jake's advice, I agreed to 5 minutes in the hallway. I made a terrible mistake, she said quietly. I see that now. Yes, you did, I replied, surprised by the lack of anger in my voice. Only sadness remained. I do not expect forgiveness, she continued, but I want you to know that you did not deserve any of this. The problems in our marriage were not just about you being boring. They were about me being unable to appreciate stability and loyalty. Christopher showed me what exciting really means, and it means being discarded the moment things get difficult. I nodded, unsure what to say. Part of me wanted to comfort her out of habit, but that part was overshadowed by self-preservation. I hope you find what you are looking for, I finally said. But it cannot be from me anymore. She wiped her eyes and nodded. I know. For what it is worth, I am sorry. I watched her walk away, feeling a complex mixture of grief, relief, and the first fragile sense of closure. 6 months have passed since that meeting in Jake's office. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago, with Amanda honoring all the terms of our agreement. I kept the house, though at first it felt too empty, filled with memories I was trying to outrun. Kaiser remained my loyal companion, his enthusiastic greeting at the end of each workday, a reliable bright spot during the darkest times. The initial weeks were the hardest. Despite the betrayal, 7 years of marriage cannot be erased overnight. I cycled through anger, profound sadness, and periods of questioning everything about our relationship. Had I truly been as boring as she claimed? Could I have done something differently? The questions haunted me on sleepless nights. Jake and my other friends became my lifeline. They refused to let me isolate myself, dragging me out to dinners, hiking trips, and even a weekend camping expedition where we left our phones behind. My parents visited for 2 weeks, my mother filling my freezer with homemade meals, while my father helped me renovate the spare bedroom, a project Amanda and I had always put off. Gradually, the raw pain began to subside. I started making small changes that were just for me. I joined a local hiking club, something Amanda had never been interested in. I volunteered at a dog rescue center on weekends, where Kaiser became something of a mascot, showing newly rescued dogs that humans could be trusted. Through mutual friends, I heard that Amanda had moved to Arizona for a fresh start. She sent a brief email apologizing once more and wishing me well. I found that I could read it without the stabbing pain I would have felt months earlier. The strangest part of healing was realizing that our marriage might not have been as perfect as I had believed. In therapy, a journey I began 2 months after Amanda left, I recognized that I had ignored warning signs. I had prioritized work over connection more often than I cared to admit. I had sometimes dismissed her desire for spontaneity as impractical, rather than finding compromises. This recognition did not excuse her betrayal, but it helped me understand that relationships require constant nurturing, not just comfortable coexistence. At the dog rescue, I met Lauren, a veterinarian who volunteered her services once a month. We developed an easy friendship based on shared love of animals and outdoor activities. Unlike my friends, who kept pushing me to get back out there, Lauren never pressured me with romantic expectations. She understood that healing happens in its own time, having gone through her own difficult divorce years earlier. The most important lesson from this painful chapter was learning to stand up for myself. For too long I had been the peacekeeper, the one who avoided conflict at all costs. When Amanda walked all over my boundaries, it was partly because I had never clearly established them. Now I found myself being more direct with everyone in my life, from friends to coworkers to family members. Not in an aggressive way, but with a newfound confidence in my own worth. Sometimes life's most valuable lessons come packaged in our most painful experiences. When Amanda wrote that she deserved better than our boring marriage, she inadvertently pushed me to discover that I deserved better. Too better than someone who would betray my trust and abandon our vows. Better than someone who would use my dog as a pawn in their selfish games. Better than a relationship where I constantly doubted my worth. I no longer dread coming home to an empty house. It is not empty after all. It is filled with peace, with Kaiser, enthusiastic welcome, with new friendships that respect boundaries, and with the knowledge that I am stronger than I ever knew. Sometimes when we lose what we thought we needed, we create space for what we truly deserve. What unexpected life event taught you to stand up for yourself? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming life challenges. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth is never determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond.